Well, it's been unusually quiet on here. I
I
guess
know,
all
it's killing me.
I know. I thought, is my sound actually working? But I'm assuming since I just heard that all is fine. So, welcome everyone to the seventh meeting of the 40th session of the Faculty Senate of Texas A&M University. If you need a reminder of the Zoom features used in our Senate meetings, the Zoom tip sheet can be found on our website at the top of the current agenda page. At this time, please make sure your microphone is muted. Senator Andrew Klein will be monitoring the raise hands function. He will verbally identify you, then you can unmute your mic and ask your question. In fairness to others, please limit yourself to one question at a time. Senator Klein will also be monitoring the chat to convey messages as necessary, so please send any chat questions directly to him. We are using the registration function of Zoom to track attendance. Most visitors today have been asked to view the meeting via our live stream, but our guests and administrators who may be asked to answer questions are joining via Zoom. Visitors wishing to address the Senate may make the request by sending a chat message to Senator Klein or by using the raise hands function. Finally, if a senator wishes to offer a motion during today's meeting, please raise your hand at the appropriate time and ask to be recognized. We are pleased to have as our guest speaker today, Dr. Tyson Volkel, President and CEO of the Texas A&M Foundation. The Senate is grateful to the foundation for all that it does for faculty, students, and staff through funding for scholarships and support that enhances research and teaching among its many endeavors. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Volkel.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me today. I'd love to share my slides with you via the screen, but just need permission to share them, and I'll promptly do that. But while I wait for the permission to do that, I just want to take a moment. It's great to see so many familiar faces on the screen. Great to see each of you. I hope that finals are wrapping up okay, and that the semester is going to end as you envisioned when you started it. I know that there's been a lot going on. I, for one, did not have a full appreciation for exactly what faculty do until I got my role about 7 years ago, to be honest, with regard to academia. And I and my family and those I interact with, I'm quick to say that your roles and your jobs are a lot more complicated than anybody realizes, and we're grateful for all that you're doing. I was asked this afternoon to share just briefly for about 15 minutes a couple of concepts. First, the culture of philanthropy. You'll start hearing that word, that phrase used a lot more as we enter 2023. And I'll go into that into some decent detail a little bit later in my presentation. And in order to do that, I need to frame contextually what philanthropy looks like at Texas A&M writ large. Some of you have heard this before, and for many it may be new. And I do have the opportunity, I think, Dr. Rice, to answer some questions, a little Q&A
Yes.
at the end of my presentation.
Yes.
So let me share my screen with you briefly here. And if I can just get a thumbs up from anybody that you've got it, then we can move in. Great. Wonderful. So as you can see, we've got the culture of philanthropy as the centerpiece here for Texas A&M University. There's 5 different entities that actually have affiliation agreements with the university in order to help the university meet its mission, its higher education mission. And from left to right on your screen, you've got the 12th Man Foundation with the primary responsibility for championship athletics. So they're the athletic fundraising arm. The George and Barbara Bush Foundation. That foundation is primarily concerned with the George and Barbara Bush Presidential Library and Conference Center. And then they also have a piece of fundraising that helps with the Bush School and with some of the ongoing program there at the Bush School. You've got the Association of Former Students, which is the alumni fundraising organization for Texas A&M. That is to fulfill the annual fund for the Association of Former Students. And then some of those funds then go to the university in an unrestricted manner for the use of the president and the provost to distribute as they see fit. The Texas Aggie Corps of Cadets Association may be new to many of you. It's recently had an affiliation agreement with the university, and they target their fundraising for experiences and for the Corps of Cadets. And then last is the Texas A&M Foundation to the far of your screen there. And I'm going to spend my time discussing the Texas A&M Foundation. First thing to state is that none of these organizations are actually in competition with one another. That is not good for A&M and not good for philanthropy if these organizations are viewed as being competitors. Each one adds value in their own way, and each has their own mission. The Texas A&M Foundation's mission is for the academic pursuits for Texas A&M University. So those scholarships, faculty professorships, chairs, programs across the campus, and yes, capital as well for buildings, so on and so forth. So what's our aspiration? Texas A&M Foundation aspires to be among the most trusted philanthropies in higher education. It's a bold vision statement because we want to earn the trust of all those we work with. We look at the university through three lenses. You as university partners in what we do, our donors, which are partners in everything that we do, and then our team here at the A&M Foundation, and how can we be passionate professionals that are dedicated to purposeful philanthropy. Our mission is to help build a brighter future for Texas A&M, and we definitely strive to do that through our philanthropic efforts. We also do it through managing the endowment, okay? We've got about a $2.8 billion endowment that we actively manage here at the Texas A&M Foundation. And the returns from that endowment are how we fund the 13,500 students on scholarship that we support, the 500 faculty and staff that we help support through those initiatives, and then literally thousands of different programs and support across the campus. Here, once again, is the slide of all the fundraising organizations that all support Texas A&M in one form or fashion. Now, this slide may be a little busy for some of you, but this is the Lead by Example campaign snapshot at the end of the campaign. And if you draw your attention to the left of the screen, the Texas A&M Foundation was responsible for about $2.6 billion of the total $4 billion that was raised. 12th Man Foundation, about $698 million. The one I'd love for you to pay attention to, because this is an area of real growth, is the private grants for research and private grants in total. That number can grow quite a bit. Jack Baldoff and I have been talking a lot about different ideas like a research shark tank and other ways that we can help support faculty at Texas A&M in reaching their research goals and getting funding through maybe some non-traditional ways, as well as the traditional ways that are the primary focus, whether you're writing NIH grants or so on and so forth. There are donors that want to help facilitate and support faculty excellence through fundraising. To the right of that is the Association of Former Students, and during the 9-year campaign, they raised about $143 million towards the campaign, and then the Bush Foundation at $29 million, and the Corps of Cadets Association at $8 million. Where does that money go is the pie chart to your right. And in that pie chart, you'll see, thankfully, that the support is to the colleges, 30% to the colleges, 20% for faculty and research, almost 20% for students. And then we've got 13% for construction, 8% for athletics. And then there's this big one called undesignated. And those are plan gifts. Those are people, both trusts, estates, Aggies, and people that didn't go to Texas A&M that have in their last will and testament where they're going to bequeath certain assets within their estate to Texas A&M for the benefit of education. And that's why that's called undesignated, because many times we don't know exactly where the funds are going to go until the will is probated and we get the intent of those family members. So this is a very important slide that you can refer back to at some point. Again, not in competition. Everybody has their mission in terms of helping support Texas A&M. So what do we do at the A&M Foundation? Primarily, we try to inspire philanthropy around those very purposeful, very driven initiatives that Texas A&M University needs. And those are driven both by department heads, by deans, by the university administration, and then by faculty champions on the campus that care about certain initiatives and certain programs. Our endowments start at $25,000 and they're invested into perpetuity. So the endowment that we manage is an all-weather endowment. So we're invested in really all asset classes across the investment sort of horizon. And we call it an all-weather portfolio because in good times and bad, we have a stated contractual obligation for a 5% payout from that endowment for the university's benefit. Okay. As we move forward, there's really four passion areas, college excellence, advancing faculty in the research, empowering students, and then the last one is the preserving the Aggie spirit, helping support the different student organizations and all the activities in and out of the classroom on the campus. Quick snapshot of some numbers that might be a little bit surprising to some. At the end of the campaign, if you average the number out over the campaign time period, it was about $50,000 per hour, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year during the campaign that had to be raised. Pretty phenomenal. Remember, that also includes those planned gifts and people's estates. Okay, so I don't have $4 billion in my account here. We've got about $1 billion that's on paper in estates that will be realized at some time when people pass on their estates to the university. But probably what's more interesting is that there's 35,000 transactions a year that we manage at the foundation purely for philanthropy. There are no fees on our gifts any longer at the Texas A&M Foundation. So what a donor contributes and what a donor gives to Texas A&M is what Texas A&M is going to receive. How do I pay for our organization and the effort that we put forth for philanthropy is a 1.25% management fee on the endowment and managing the endowment. And so that's how we cover our operations. So we can clearly say 100% of what a donor contributes goes to the cause that they had at Texas A&M. So these are just a few of the major campaign accomplishments that we highlight. And you can see those slides. I think everybody has a copy of these in their read ahead. But very proudly, so much of what we do relates directly to the academic purpose of our land grant, space grant, sea grant institution. And we want to continue that. And that's what leads us into this idea of a culture of philanthropy. That culture of philanthropy means that everybody on the campus has a general understanding of the role of philanthropy, as well as a general understanding of how philanthropy can help further their cause and what they might need in terms of their program, their department, or an initiative that you're passionate about. Okay, sort of the phrase that I've coined with it is that a culture of philanthropy at A&M is where our Aggie values and our Aggie vision, they intersect to create a brighter future for humanity. So that's a bold vision for that as well, but I think it's completely attainable at Texas A&M. So that's the next stage of where we're headed. So we're out of a campaign right now. Dr. Banks has a lot of different initiatives that each of you may or may not be aware of. Each of the deans, those that are in place now, and the various search committees that are going on, they all have a vision for what the future might look like. And that's where my organization partners in order to help meet that. It's all surrounded on that first idea, that vision that I talked about around trust. And in order to have trust, we've got to be transparent. We've got to be very forthright in how we operate, what it is that we do. And we've also got to trust that our academic partners have the ability to execute and achieve the things that we're going out and talking to donors about contributing to. So we've created a 3-hour session for faculty and staff to participate in. We provide food as well as a venue here at the John Hagler Center where the Texas A&M Foundation is headquartered. And we're starting these a few times a year where we bring faculty and staff in to explain a little bit more about how you can participate in philanthropy at Texas A&M University, and it's no cost to the campus at all. One other thing I'll highlight is there is an award for partners in philanthropy. It does come with a generous stipend. 100% of those stipends so far that have been awarded have been contributed back to some cause that the faculty and staff care about. But it's called a Partner in Philanthropy Award. And my development team is always looking for partners to recommend for this award on the campus. Last but not least, February 14th, easy to remember, Valentine's Day. And then April the 4th are going to be our next two faculty workshops where you could come to the Texas A&M Foundation, share your ideas, learn a little bit more about what we do, and hopefully we can connect you to either a development officer or to an existing program or initiative where we can help you achieve what your goals are philanthropically for the university. So with that, sir, I think I'm right at my 15-minute mark, and we'll open it up for any questions if there's time. And if not, I'm happy to do so in the chat.
There is time. We appreciate the presentation. The slides are in attachment A for future reference of any senators who want to go back and take a look. So are there questions for Dr. Vogel?
Senator Angie Hill Price has her hand raised.
Hi, so I just went to that website real quick, and it doesn't show those dates on there to look at the availability. It still looks at the November 30th one.
Great, we'll get that fixed. Sorry about that. Thanks, Angie.
I don't see any other questions right now, Tyson. No, Clint McGill just raised his hand.
You say there's no competition. That's on your end. I would think that some of the donors probably have to consider where they're going to give their funds.
Actually, that's a great point. That is a great point. And so, yes, so in my world, I believe in the free market, and the best ideas and the best information is what's important to a donor. So when I say there's no competition, the goal is that we don't, in the industry, you talk about hoarding donors, right? You don't allow a donor to see another idea for fear that they may decide that idea is better than the one that you have and that they're funding. And that's where that competition gets into play. We believe in transparency, so we share so much information with our donors. We have 3 publications. Hopefully each of you receive those. They're each focused on academia. There's no advertisements in our publications. Our publications are purely focused on how to elevate academia. And we've got great stories where we pair up the donors with projects that they funded, so on and so forth. And that's Spirit Magazine. That's for our traditional donor. That's 45 to about 85 years old. And then we've got the Maroon Magazine. And Maroon is more for our millennials. Different paper, recycled. It feels different. The stories are a little bit different. And then we have our Heritage publication, and that's for plan giving predominantly. And we give donors the choice to figure out where they want their money to go. Now, that also means that there has to be a coordinated effort, an orchestra director, if you will. Let's take the McFerrin family, who's given across 49 different areas across the campus, tens and tens of millions of dollars. We try to streamline the communication so that they don't have 20 different people asking them for money from across the campus, because that, number one, it gets annoying for the donors. Number two, there's no coordination of effort. And what we try to do is be that coordinating effort to help streamline things. So great question. Thanks for bringing that up.
Senator Banerjee has his hand up next.
Yes, just reiterating what I mentioned in the chat, would like to have you come and address CPI as well, particularly the one you mentioned about your discussions with VPR Baldo regarding the Shark Tank type of structure for research. I'm curious to know more about it. So would appreciate it if you could come to CPI.
Wonderful. Yeah. So Dr. Baldoff and I, Jack Baldoff and I have been talking about it for a while, and we're working through what that might look like moving forward. Just last week alone, we signed a few $1 million, as in about $3 million in purely pass-through dollars for about 3 researchers on campus that are doing work that this particular foundation is really interested in. And so I do believe that that's a growth area within philanthropy. And there's no quid pro quo, there's no report due back in terms of proprietary information or research information. These are donors that just want to see solutions to real problems from real people taking place. So I'd be happy to do that, and we'll get that worked out. And I've taken note of that. So any other questions?
Thank you.
So Tyson, there's no other hand raised. Let me ask a question, however.
Right.
What are your biggest challenges in the next 5 years?
The biggest challenges in the next 5 years, I'll start with the one that might be the most obvious, and that is we're in a very interesting economic time. So we also manage the endowment. If I were given this presentation a year ago, I would have said our endowment just crested over $3 billion. But if you heard what I said when I started, I said we have an endowment right about 2.8 billion. So we've lost about $250 million over during this market cycle. Now that's better than our peers, and we just published our annual report. You'll see that we benchmark against the best in terms of how we're structured and how we make investments, as well as our stability of our payout, because we do it over a 20-quarter rolling average. So we take the highs and the lows and kind of smooth it out, which was brilliant for the founders of the Texas A&M Foundation to put together. But the economy is one headwind that we've got. When the economy is volatile as it is, so too does donor giving sometimes become volatile. It just depends on that. So that's one of the headwinds. Look, MGT and all the big ideas and the consolidation on campus and the number of interim deans and interim positions, that impacts us, right? And so that's another headwind that we have until things get stable with regard to the campus and the vision is really understood and realized in terms of the direction the campus is going. That's another area where it's a headwind for us, because remember, we're partners to Texas A&M, and such. We enjoy the highs and the lows that you do as faculty and as leaders on the campus, and so that's another challenge for us over the next 5 years. But I think we're starting to get some real clarity, and some of the big ticket items, some of the really big transformational ideas are starting to take shape. And once those take shape, then we can build business plans around who to engage, when to engage, how to engage, in order to raise the kind of dollars, the philanthropic dollars that are required for some of these really bold initiatives. So economy, the next one is, some of the volatility in terms of the post MGT sort of time frame and that getting solidified and clarity are two. The third one is with regard to talent. As you look at what in a post-COVID world, the hybrid work environment and the challenge of talent recruitment, talent retention, we're not immune from that at the foundation. To hire the top and best people, we've got to double down and really do a good job of showing the impact of what it might mean to work for an organization like the A&M Foundation. So that's probably our third challenge as we're moving forward. And then lastly, the fourth challenge is I did restructure the foundation about 2.5 years ago to better meet these three areas that I talked about, being university partners and then with our donors. And with that, we restructured our complete database. So we've moved to an entirely new Salesforce-driven CRM platform, and a few other big changes that are just now starting to really show the value in this next year. So I'm optimistic about that. But those other challenges aren't going to go away anytime soon. It's kind of like the weather. We put our raincoat on when we know it's going to rain, and we do our best. And that's what we're doing right now in terms of that. So hopefully I answered the question. I don't know if that was too quick an answer.
Thank you. And
Okay.
Speaker Rice, I don't see any more hands raised
Great.
or questions.
Okay, Tyson, thank you so much for your time today and for the invitation for faculty to join you at the foundation and in these efforts to further philanthropy. So
Wonderful.
thank
It's a
you so
pleasure.
much.
Pleasure being with you. Good luck with the rest of your meeting. Just know the A&M Foundation's here as a partner for you. And if we don't have the answer, we'll try to find one and we'll do our best for you. But thanks for all you do. And we'll see you over the next few weeks and into the new year. Good luck with everything you're working on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So moving to the announcement section, in recent Senate meetings, there have been some questions raised about research requirements and their impacts on faculty and funding. So we thought it would be good to invite key people from our research division to come and provide an update and to answer questions. Both Dr. Jerry Ann Alexander, the Associate Vice President for Research, and Lisa Feldhausen, the Associate Executive Director of Sponsored Research, are here. And so is the Vice President for Research, Jack Baldoff. Jack, is there anything that you would like to say initially as part of an overview before we move to the other individuals?
No, I think you've had this on the agenda for some time, and I think the initial discussion points were associated with the rollout of Huron. So Lisa Feldhausen can start by giving an update of where that is and trying to address issues associated with that. And then since we're trying to roll out the Ascend program, I thought it was important and timely for Jerry Ann just to give you a snapshot of where we are with that to make people aware of it. So why don't we start with Lisa and then go to Jerry Ann?
All right. Thank you for having me. So I'm going to do about a 15-minute spiel in about 5. So if I go too fast, please feel free to stop me and jump in. So really where Huron one of the reasons we did that is because of this slide. So National Security Presidential Memo 33. So this is, I know you guys have probably heard this quite a bit. So this is what kind of developed out of the tail end of the Trump administration. The Biden administration picked it up probably within about 7 or 8 months. They put out implementation guidance in January of this year. And so really it kind of outlined 5 main commitments. And so the first was the disclosure requirements, just to try to get the feds all on the same page and get their disclosure requirements, their biographical sketches, all those a little bit more consistent for you guys. The research security program requirements is really kind of included within Huron. Also the digital persistent identifiers, which will be handy to kind of help identify researchers. And we have a lot of researchers that use different names or initials or first name, last name. So it's hard to really kind of tell who all is who. The sharing of information among the federal agencies. So this is key. And I think was a big problem because, for example, I think like DOD would have a researcher that they may say they're not allowed to do research anymore. Well, maybe NIH wanted to know that. They didn't realize that researcher maybe had some undisclosed foreign talent awards or something like that. And then consequences for violations of disclosure requirements. So there's never really been consequences. So we've had all these requirements. The feds have had disclosure requirements for many, many years. Never really have been consequences for that. The research security program requirements, which is number 2. So really universities have to show that they have programs in place to address cybersecurity concerns, that foreign travel security that involves training, the research security training piece, and the export control training. Let's go. And just as an example, so NSF, I know a lot of you guys have NSF research, and so they created a new position, a chief of research security strategy and policy. Her name's Rebecca Kaiser. We've actually worked with her quite a bit. Now this just kind of gives you an example. I won't read through it all because just I have a few minutes, but it kind of shows that they've had grant funds that they've had to be repaid to the tune of 11.2 million as of March 2022. Awards have been suspended. And really, this all kind of comes down to lack of disclosure. The feds are saying it's not enough for universities to say we didn't know. Well, we have policies in place. They should have done it, but they didn't. We have to ask now. And so when you see Huron, you see a lot of those questions in yes, no format. So at least we can try to get that. Foreign influence, I know you guys have been beat to death with that. Really what that is a lot of some foreign governments are really after our most accomplished researchers, the ones who are have access to proprietary information or have that access to intellectual property. And so what the feds are really concerned with is they may have funded that for 10 years. Well, another country may come in and say, oh, you already have this, we'll pay you to recreate this in our country just in the next year. And so that's really what the feds are looking at as well. Foreign talent awards, this is why this is a question in Huron. For those of you who completed that, we actually have a yes, no question because the feds are saying that the universities are required to know. So if someone has a talent award, the university will have had to have reviewed that, approved it or not approved it, but just be aware. And so those talent awards, why the feds are so concerned with it is because a lot of them say, give us your IP, but don't tell your employer, don't tell your university, don't tell the feds, just don't disclose this. It can, they can pay you in cash, they can give you research funding, they can give you anything you want to set up a lab that's just like your lab here. So lots of different things or components to one of those foreign talent awards. So this is new. I don't know if you guys have seen this yet. So we have a new system regulation that came out in August. The two key definitions, high risk global engagement, that was pretty straightforward. That's a written contract with someone in a country of concern. The confusing part that we're really trying to focus our FAQs on, or what is a high risk international collaboration. I won't read this to you, but you can see it really includes a lot. Your peer review, honorary positions, unfunded research, all involving a country of concern. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, you guys probably know that. Really what this means, if any work you're doing falls under that high risk global engagement or collaboration, we have to do further reviews. And we're working on a university rule and FAQs to kind of hopefully help line that out, make that a little bit more simplified. This, I'm just throwing this out there. So this hasn't changed, the FCOI policy, and since the feds redid this in 2012, this A through F has not changed since I've been here. What we did though is take that A through F and turn it into a yes, no question, because once a year, if you're just asked, hey, do you have any SFIs? You're not going to remember what an SFI is, a significant financial interest. So now you don't have to worry about it. Just answer the yes, no questions, move on. We're compliant with the feds on FCOI. System regulation. So this is the external employment. So this actually was updated in 2020. And this is new to a lot of departments and colleges. So this underlined section is the new text, which has really created a lot of confusion. So they've added that the provision of certain types of scholarly or research expertise to foreign entities without compensation constitutes faculty consulting or external professional employment. They were interpreting that to mean that anything you did unfunded with a foreign entity would require external employment approval. We've worked extensively with OGC over the last year, and we've got them to narrow that down to countries of concern. So they're working on updating the reg, but as of now, we can interpret that certain types of scholarly or research expertise to only apply to countries of concern. Virtually that definition, I didn't copy paste the external employment 310502, but they've got the exact same language in that one as well. Conflict of commitment, been around since January 2020. Really, that's the NSF, really their initial focus was that commitment piece. And so anything that a faculty or staff member does that's substantially similar to or in competition with what they do here for the university needs to be reviewed, approved by department, college as a commitment. And then we've got our proposed global engagement rule. So this is, hopefully you guys will probably see this draft, hopefully soon if you haven't already. What we have to do as part of the rule is designate individuals who are authorized to sign these high-risk global engagements and high-risk international collaborations. I have talked to contract administration. They are working to update their regs. So if you look at the policy right now, it won't say this, but the memo did go out. Academic agreements, Dr. Balabina or her designee, research agreements for Dr. Baldoff or his designee. We have to outline a process for reviewing and addressing those conflicts of commitment, interest, export control, and any kind of foreign influence concerns, and obtain approval from the Vice Chancellor for Research, working in conjunction with the System Research Security Office. They've also put in a requirement to complete export control training once every 2 years. This is all in the system reg. We do reference an entities list. It's got about currently 375 entities on it. That collaborations just won't be allowed. So for example, I've just listed a couple examples because you guys are probably familiar with these, but Harbin is a big example. So it's a kind of no need to ask, they just won't be allowed. Only includes entities located in those countries of concern. So just keep in mind, there may be entities in other countries that we're also not allowed to do with. And for Russia, currently it's a no. So everything with Russia is a no-go. Our FAQs includes answers to our most frequently asked questions. I actually had a good question at a meeting a couple of weeks ago that we've included, we'll work with OGC on, was if for an editor who is a editor for US Journal, do they need to worry about where those co-authors come from? So that's a good question. And I think that's it. That was really quick.
Lisa, can you go back to your previous slide, please?
I will. I think I accidentally clicked.
So Lisa went through this real quickly, and the intent from a division perspective is to engage with the Faculty Senate Research Committee as soon as we can get on the docket, either for their revised December meeting or the January meeting, to walk through this in more detail and look at the essentially FAQs in detail and the draft rule. And then we can always come back to this in greater detail. But what, by Lisa walking through this, it at least provides an understanding of the complexity and the really moving dynamic environment we are in from an agency's perspective of how this continues to evolve over time, because it's not fixed. Lisa started with the first slide. Well, that's coming out of White House policy, science policy, and the agencies have now they're in discussions on how are they going to respond to it, and that's going to ripple into next year. So this is going to remain fluid. But this last bullet here really comes back to the issues related to Huron and what one is trying to achieve. And the critical pieces of it are conflict of interest, financial conflict of interest, conflict of commitment, and faculty consulting and external employment. And there's historically, individuals were completing independent forms for these, and Huron is an effort at trying to bring these together to simplify it. And yes, in rolling it out, there were some challenges and disconnects between communications of software packages, but those should have been resolved. And if not, then if you've got issues and concerns, flag them, because we are continue to work through them. But the ultimate goal was to improve for the PI their ability to ensure the ease of compliance and understanding the compliance components that at the moment the agencies are looking at. And those are pretty much focused on disclosures of either financial conflict of interest, looking at co-authors and disclosing those or not disclosing those. And agencies currently are handling that different, but that's evolving.
Thank you, Jack. I imagine that there are some questions for Lisa, and I see hands that have gone up. So I will let Senator Klein call on people in the order that he has the hands raised.
So Senator Taylor has his hand raised first.
Thank you. Ma'am, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask just to make sure that I am not misinterpreting. On this slide that is on my screen, in particular, the entities, the example of Nanjing pops up. Am I correct in interpreting that this would not apply to if a potential student contacted me for supervising that student to a degree, and say a graduate degree, and I was actually interested in that student? Is that a correct interpretation, that type of situation is not what's covered under this global engagement process, but might, I realize, be applicable to issues over export control?
So it would depend. We're working on FAQs for this, but if that individual was maintaining that relationship with Nanjing, there's a potential it would be no. It would depend on.
Okay. But if the student was say an undergraduate student coming out of a Chinese academic institution like Nanjing or another one, contacted simply for the sake of saying, Dr. Taylor, I want you to be my master's or my PhD supervisor, but not with any type of ongoing there. I realize there would probably be either some type of export control concern given their nationality, but is it a correct interpretation that that situation is not what's covered here?
And they're working on their master's here at A&M?
Theoretically, yes.
Right. So I don't think
Okay.
the intent is to discourage any of that type of work.
Okay. And presumably there would be similar types of, as you say, currently for Russia, no collaborations are allowed. Would this also apply to those other two nations that are on the countries of concern list, particularly Iran or North Korea? Would these sorts of things also apply to those nations as well?
It does, but it's not all or nothing. So we do have, we actually, I don't think can think of in 10 years of ever being asked to North Korea, but Iran, we do
Of
work
course.
quite a bit. And so if we can get a license, there's some good licenses in place for Iran.
Okay.
So it's not a blanket no, it's just we need to look at to make sure we can do it.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Jack. Just jump in if you need to.
Yeah, so just another piece of that response is that our intent is to build international collaborations, specifically with the country of concern being China. We can't work in isolation. What we need to do is look at adhering to system protocols, but looking at a risk approach. So in focusing on China, there are entities that will be on an entity list or that need assessment, and in some cases approval at the system level before one can move forward and implement with them. That's the process that we're trying to work through right now, and trying to capture all the nuances given the complexity in an FAQ, and that FAQ will be circulated. As I said, we'll start with the research subcommittee, but as we broaden it, we want these type of examples so we can address them. It's a complicated enough situation where the FAQ we're generating is essentially a discussion between us, system, and general counsel to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Senator Burns has his hand raised next, I think.
Howdy from the law school. So I can clarify, pre the proposed rule, we have a book authorship with a potential royalty or no royalty with a foreign publisher or with a local domestic publisher. We go to our dean, we fill in a form, whether it be conflict of interest or just for moonlighting, and we get approval, and then presumably dean sends up chain of command as necessary. And is that still correct, or did I miss something? Like, are we supposed to go into Huron as just regular faculty without like dean status or something, and fill in the Huron for those?
So right now it's researchers only. I think the plan is to potentially roll it out to staff. And once we do, then yes, it would apply. And I think law school is the only one we hadn't done the demo to. We've been we're trying to get on y'all's calendar where we get the most of you guys. But the book authorship question would be depending on where that entity was located. So we're trying to narrow it down with OGC to be only if that who you were submitting that to was located in a country of concern. So we've really tried to take out a lot of the entities that are in the UK and that kind of thing that you're submitting publications and books to, is not requiring any kind of pre-approval. You may still need to disclose depending on who your sponsor is, but if you're not a researcher, yeah.
Okay, got it. No, okay. Thank you very kindly.
Senator Kolozinski has his hand raised next.
Yes, so I guess two quick questions. So I take it everything is still in flux. It's not clear yet what has to be disclosed and whatnot, at least in some cases. When do you anticipate all this to be finalized?
So our rule is due actually in February. It's been routing for quite some time, so we may have to get an extension, but I think we'll have to have it finalized in the spring.
Okay, and now Oh, yeah. So now I'm going to ask you about like pre-existing projects. So for example, I have several ongoing collaborations with co-authors in Chinese universities. I've been working with them for a number of years. I'm not using any sensitive or classified data. It's mostly public data that we're using. So if these collaborations are already pre-existing, I mean, I didn't have to ask for approval for them before. So how's that going to work?
So as of now, with RSO, we will have to send those if they're, depending on where they are, for approval. And we have received approvals back, and we've received maybe some mitigation measures that we have to put in place. But yes, even if it's ongoing and it's with a country of concern, per Research Security Office, we'll need to still submit that for approval.
So when is that? When am I going to have to submit all that for approval?
So the sooner the better, I think.
I mean, because I tried to, back in September, I tried to submit things for approval, but it wouldn't let me do it because it was asking me things like, have I received any compensation or services from them? Have I received any external grant or money from these foreign sources? And the answer was no. It wouldn't let me ask for approval. It would just, the Huron system wouldn't let me do it, right? So is that going to change soon, or?
It should. So we had some validation errors right there in August, September when it first rolled out that have all been corrected. But if you're having issues, definitely please let us know.
Okay. And where is the list of prohibited institutions on that?
So we haven't published it yet because we're working on FAQs. I think it will be circulated probably to the research group, right, Dr. Baldoff?
Yeah, so our time frame is next agenda item is to have this discussion with Faculty Senate Research Subcommittee. After that, we will finalize the rule for broader circulation, typically to what university rules go through. And also at that time, we will have it up on the website that people can review the FAQs and provide comments on, review the rule, as well as to review essentially the entities list. The entities list is essentially being drawn from the government based on recommendations from the systems office.
I see. Okay, thank you.
I think Sarah Ariava is next.
Yes, hi, Raimundo Rayobe, College of Engineering. I have a question, and the question has to do with how you define collaborations. And a follow-up to that question is, for example, we could actually have papers that we work on with someone outside of Texas A&M. And in the course of the reviews or working on the paper, our co-authors could actually reach out to other entities. They, by the way, these co-authors could be in Europe. They may not have these constraints. They reach out to co-authors in China, for example, and then we all appear in the same paper, even though the main responsibility for communicating and coordinating the collaboration is outside of our purview, right? And sometimes we don't have, I mean, like if someone else is the lead author, we don't actually have control over who the co-authors are, right? So we appear in a paper that is in the open literature, basic science, and suddenly someone from a sensitive country appears as co-author. And my question is, is it realistic for us to, figure out as faculty how to solve this problem? Is this a collaboration of concern? How does the system see this?
Sure. No, those are great questions. And we're working on the trying to see if we can get system to further define that definition of international collaboration. Because when you saw it, that's very vague. So they even took out binding agreement. So it's just any agreement between the university and that entity, whether it be a handshake deal or an actual written agreement. Your second question about the co-authors, we actually have some FAQs we're working to address there on how far we need to go down that line. Because a lot of times you're dealing with just the entity, you don't know who that entity is dealing with. So we are trying to get that clarified as well, which I think we have. We just want to make sure that they've formally approved it, our answers. Dr. Baldoff, do you have anything you want to add to that one, or?
Not specific to that one, but my suggestion is these type of queries or examples, feeding them to the research working group would be advantageous. So when we meet, we can walk through them and address them.
So there was a question posted to me that I think is probably on a lot of people's minds, and it is, what if we are asked to review a paper by authors at Nanjing University or other no-go institutions?
So that is probably clearly going to require approval, and that's one that's included in our FAQs.
So even paper reviews.
Right. And but
Hold
we
on.
are working on clarifications for that as well.
Okay, can I make a comment here? And I need to jump in because this is super important. Many of us are editors of journals, right? And we get hundreds of papers from all countries in the world on a monthly basis. It is completely unrealistic for us to mine and to figure out who is the author of which paper and which one we can or cannot, edit as editors, which is a higher level of peer review than reviewers. And if that constraint is placed on us, we as faculty cannot work as editors of any major journal because 50% or 70% of all the research is coming out of China, right? So, I want the system to be very careful. If you set these constraints, we will not have editorships being Texas A&M faculty, and that can immensely affect our reputation as scholars in the United States.
Right. And we 100% agree with that because we don't want anyone to not come to A&M, to our researchers, right, to ask for this stuff. So we are actually making progress on that, hopefully to make it a little more agreeable to you guys. But yes, that is a very valid concern that we have very high on our radar.
Senator Moyna has her hand up next.
I think I have what might be another one of these examples that you're collecting. I'm editing a book and somebody sent me a publication or a potential chapter for that book. The authors are Russian and Syrian, working out of a Russian institution. Should I tell them this is a no-go now before they actually write the paper? Or should I wait until you clarify? Because it's been cruel and counterproductive, really, for my reputation as a researcher to be, bouncing, to be an ideological bouncer.
Right. So what we're trying to do is, who are you editing that book for? So as long as who you're editing it for is not an entity in Russia.
Okay.
So that's where we're headed.
The publisher is the okay.
Right. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what we want to do. Now, granted, it's going to be OGC and our System Research Security Office that makes that final decision. But I think we'll be able to do that. That's our hope.
Yeah, and just to expand upon that, it's not just Russia, but it's if the publisher is in a country of concern, that is what we're trying to path we're trying to walk down, rather than just international editorships.
So there's one other question directed at me that's probably useful for people. So do you have a date when the FAQ is going to be available? Some faculty are wondering about the deadline for that.
So go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, I was going to say, hoping spring. We've circulated the draft to a couple of stakeholder groups and received comment, but go ahead, Dr. Baldoff.
Yeah, I would, it's being modified based on input we have to date and a few clarifications necessary with OGC. I would like to, the original target was to have it for broader circulation along with the ruling that prior to the Christmas break. That may be ambitious. What I want to do is I want to circulate it to the Faculty Senate Research Group, and then after that go for a much broader distribution. From my point of view, we're behind the curve already. So spring, I would move spring up till, if it's not going to be before the Christmas holidays, it's going to be in January.
Thank you. Senator Kolodziejski has his hand raised.
Yes, so something you said earlier seems concerning to me. You indicated that as a reviewer, I would need to get permission to review papers by people authors who are in countries of concern or in Russia or whatever. The problem is that as a reviewer, from the vast majority of journals, I don't see who the authors are. They're blind reviews. So how is that going to work? I find that confusing.
Right. No, I agree. And we're trying to find that too. So if the definition that system included for high risk collaboration includes peer review. And so that's part of our FAQs, trying to get that. Because a lot of times you guys don't know, or you know the day before. And so that's what we're trying to get
Well,
clarification.
sometimes I don't even, for some journals, I won't know who the authors are unless the paper is accepted.
Right. And so that with journals where we've been successful, I think, in getting them to limit it to where that journal is located.
So in part, you only know what you know, right?
Right, right.
Well, yeah, but okay. Well, it would be nice if it were spelled out that,
Right.
that, you know, I mean,
We should add that as clarification in the.
yeah, because I review a
document.
paper, you know, I review a paper by an author in Russia. I have no idea the author's in Russia. The paper gets published, and then and then they disclose me as the reviewer. I don't want to get in trouble for that.
Right. And that is included on our FAQs. I know URC and CPI both have brought that up. And so we are working to get clarification on that as well.
Okay.
So please send Lisa your questions to make sure they're addressed. Send them to your research subcommittee. Because we're trying to get as much broad input as we can to finalize this in an acceptable manner. I would like to switch to Jerry Ann because I know we've got a time constraint, and just give a brief snapshot of where we are with the Sun, if that's okay with y'all.
Yes, go ahead, Jerry Ann.
You're muted, Jerry Ann.
Yeah, how do I share my screen? Share, okay, there. So you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so very quickly, this is a short version, it was a short presentation to CPI, but this one will be a little shorter, if I can. So this is a new internal Sea Grant program, and I have to move, there we go. That there are two components ultimately serving one long-term vision, which is to accelerate our research preeminence and solve global challenges. So here we're echoing some of the themes of the president's address, and also things that we saw in the faculty and research enterprise response to the survey. So growing new interdisciplinary research team leaders, and one program is called the Research Leadership Fellowship, and the other is to expand and support existing interdisciplinary teams, and that's with the Targeted Proposal Team, or TPT. So the first one is research leadership. What is it? There's $1 million annually to develop and diversify tomorrow's research leaders today. And who will be eligible? This is targeting, again, future leaders. So the advanced assistant or junior associate level individual. And again, this is not necessarily for everybody, but people that have potential for leadership might find this attractive. Oops, I went backwards, sorry. And then the second, what is that? It's $5 million annually to build and facilitate teams for the purpose of submitting a large interdisciplinary proposal. And by large, it's not necessarily defined in terms of dollar amounts, although that is one metric, but something that is maybe strategic, impactful, because we recognize that for not all disciplines would the dollar amount be as large as it would be for some others, and a good marker of impact and large. So something that makes a mark on knowledge and something that can address societal challenge. And again, this is targeting the advanced, already established type of PI who's been, or researcher that's been working with teams. Oops, I keep going backwards. All right, sorry about that. So I'm only going to talk about two elements here, the awardee criteria very briefly, and then what makes this unique, which is really the types of services that we provide or to the awardees. I've already mentioned the level of financial support at the for the first one, it's 75, up to 75 for the fellowship per year for a year. And for the second one, the TPT, it's up to 250K for approximately 2 years. So awardee criteria, again, we have under the Research Leadership Fellowship, these are going to be individuals that are more junior, that have demonstrated leadership potential. There is a requirement of a proposal concept, which is not necessarily the same. Well, it is not the same as the large interdisciplinary proposal, something that's related to their leadership goals. And there's also a requirement that when the individual completes this, they don't go back to the same old, that the college or school has to, as part of the application, talk about future leadership opportunities for this individual. And then the targeted proposal team, again, establish, leadership in this. And again, large, I have greater than 5 million, but we recognize that that is not necessarily the criteria that would be appropriate for all types of research fields. So what I wanted to emphasize first, and I didn't, is that this has been rolled out, and Jack has been seeking what we would maybe call it polishing of this through feedback to the different constituents, like the Senate, like the CPI, like the deans, like department heads. So what is the proposal specific division of research support? This is really what makes this unique, is that in addition to the funds that are being provided, there is actually services. And in the first case for Research Leadership Fellowship, there are informational or curriculum component that's focused on transmitting leadership, what we know about leadership through research and activities. So below you see the examples of different topics. And then there's also an experiential component, which is the activity that will engage them with an interdisciplinary team to prepare a proposal. For the targeted proposal team, there is going to be, again, the funds that can be used to support different activities as they build towards a target that they identify. But there's also going to be broad proposal development support, basically the things that prevent individuals from focusing on the research and writing about the research. We're going to coordinate support with SRS, with research development services, so that all these administrative burdens that are associated with preparing large proposals are addressed by that team. And again, this is something that's different. So just finally comparing current and past internal programs, both of them, the T3s and X grants, compared to the Research Leadership Fellowship and the TPT, there is a focus on interdisciplinary teams. In the X grants, we had internal funding, but they were at small fixed amounts, T3, or elevated amounts in the X grant. We have internal funding, but it's matched to team project needs. Again, the 75 versus the 250 for each year. So that would be up to $500,000. There was no proposal submission requirement for T3 or X grants. There was no required deliverable in that respect. And with the TPT and the RLF, we have a proposal submission requirement that's consistent with the goals of each program. And again, what makes this unique is that with the T3 and X grants, you were given funds, but there was no division of research commitment of other resources. And with these other programs, there are funds, but there is a commitment to support proposal and career development that again makes this unique. And that is the website. I went quickly, and I'll stop share.
Okay, are there any questions for Dr. Alexander on the Ascend program?
Senator Taylor just raised his hand.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Alexander, great to hear about the project or the programs. Am I correct in understanding, particular to the TPT program, that it's not that it's both a marriage of proposal development support by the DOR as well as funds, presumably by the DOR. So the full professor, the associate professor who gets a team together that really, as you say, targets something that's rather impactful, not only has support from your office to develop the proposal, coordinate with SRS, et cetera, but they're competing for dollars, or they're asking for dollars that are being provided from your offices as well? Or is it more a function of, we're going to help you get those big dollar, big target proposals ready, and as you say, help you focus on the research and not being a document collector, as it were?
Right. So the president has committed the funds. So the 5 million for the one program and the 1 million for the other. And these are the funds that will be supporting the preparation, the work and again, I didn't have enough time to go into all the details, but things like, it could be used for collecting data, for organizing, for meeting with program officers, for graduates. I mean, there's a lot of different activities that were probably very similar to the use of the funds in, say, the X grant, except that it's a smaller amount, and it has to be something that is supported by the needs. It's not just here. And then what makes it different, though, is that the team, as part of the selection process, early on identifies a target that might be 2 years away, and we work with them to provide the support to, as you say, to remove those administrative burdens, to allow them to focus on doing the research, writing the best proposal. And then again, the funds are meant also to enhance the work that needs to be done to prepare that, significant proposal. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
I don't see any other hand raised, and I have not seen anything in the chat.
All right. So I'm going to run to another meeting. Oh.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thanks, Jack and Lisa and Jerry Ann. We appreciate very much the update and taking time to answer questions. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Now, moving on to speaker comments. Colleagues, I'd like to take a few minutes today to discuss an issue that has many of us concerned: the mental health of students, faculty, and staff. Student government has been actively engaged in this issue this semester, working on ways to address the challenges that many students face. And I expect that in the spring, we will be working on a number of proposals together. 10 days ago, I attended the monthly conversation conducted by Faculty Affairs. One thing that was clear after the 90 minutes of discussion was the amount of stress and anxiety many faculty are feeling, particularly in their efforts to balance family life and work. Then last Friday, several senators met with Nancy Farnwald, the Associate Vice President for University Health Services, and Connie Langelier, the Associate Director of Counseling and Psychological Services, to discuss ways faculty might engage in helping students who are facing challenges. We left the meeting with 3 action items. 1, we're going to devote our January Senate coffee session to the state of mental health on campus. That will be a time when you can bring up issues you'd like to see the university address. We will be inviting Dr. Farnwald and others to join us that day. 2, in February, the Senate and CAPS will jointly sponsor a workshop on how to talk to students in crisis, which we hope will be the first of a number of workshops aimed at assisting faculty who want to learn more about addressing student mental health issues. 3, the same group that met last week to discuss student mental health issues will meet again in January to explore the mental health challenges that faculty face and ways to address them. I hope we can develop a plan of action in the spring to address faculty well-being. These are not the easiest things to discuss, Being open about these issues will make many people feel vulnerable, and I recognize that may limit some involvement. But it's incumbent on the Senate to take a leadership role in improving the well-being of all members of our community. I want to wrap up the speaker comments by noting a few operational matters. First, I'd like to remind you that if you're unable to attend a meeting for a valid reason, please be sure to reach out to our Faculty Senate Assistant so she can make sure to document your absence as excused. This is a reminder you're only allowed to miss 3 Senate meetings per year. We will not be holding our Senate coffee in December, but as I mentioned earlier, I hope many of you will attend the one we'll be hosting January 20th in the Great Hall of the YMCA. And finally, I'd like to wish everyone a safe, healthy, and relaxing break. I know you deserve it. Now for the approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the November 14th meeting minutes found in attachment B? Hearing none, then I declare the minutes approved as distributed. Now for the consent agenda. I've been asked by a senator from Arts and Sciences to remove one item from the consent agenda, Nutrition 440. Are there any other questions or concerns with our December 12th consent agenda items? Hearing none, I declare the consent agenda approved as submitted with the one exception of Nutrition 440. Moving to unfinished business, do I have a motion from the floor regarding Nutrition 440?
If nobody else does, I would move that we go ahead and consider it. So we can figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we consider Nutrition 440. Is there discussion?
Can someone address what the concern was?
Yes, I can address that. This is the course which has been changed to microbiology, microbiome, and food. This is an existing course that they have made changes to. And now with the changes, it looks like we have almost 60 to 70% of the topics that they address are already in the existing course of Biology 351, which is Fundamentals of Microbiology. So there's a significant overlap in the two courses. And since we have not been contacted by the nutrition folks to see where the differences are, so we just thought that it should be removed so that until we kind of solve this with them.
Senator Hill Price has her hands raised again.
So it sounds like we need to not approve this class and then perhaps a second motion to, or we could approve it as a friendly amendment, approve it pending having a support letter from biology, which would make it go through faster.
Yes, I think there has to be some kind of a discussion between the units. So for now, we would like to table it until we can come up with some kind of an agreement. I mean, it's pretty much the same course. It's a pre-existing course, so they may even try to completely not put this course forward and maybe completely change it so that there's absolutely no overlap. So we don't know anything as to what exactly they're intentions are. So we would like to first discuss it. So I would suggest that we table this for now until the units have met.
So
Instead of just saying we will amend it.
our dilemma at the moment is the motion is to consider the course. So unless those who made the motion are prepared to withdraw it, it would seem like the easiest way forward is Senator Price's suggestion of offering a friendly amendment that would say that it is delayed until there has been suitable arrangements made between the two departments.
I apologize for interrupting Speaker Rice, but there's a comment that Senator Walker put in there that it says that it was actually rolled back. So I'm not sure it's even supposed to have been on this consent agenda. So we might need to verify that it's even something that was supposed to have been brought forward, because there were a number of things that were that were changed off the agenda, and we probably check to make sure that it's even that our list is even current.
It's listed as being in the nutrition department head's approval queue right now.
Oh,
No, it's not as if and that leads a bigger problem. Then we probably have to double check our consent agenda to make sure that everything really was supposed to be at the Faculty Senate prepare stage. I know there was a lot of things that were adjusted at the last minute because of the issues from UCC. I mean, just the whole, lots of things we're trying to resolve. So I think this is a bigger problem. We need to check and make sure it was even supposed to be with us in the first place.
And I would say that if it's not supposed to be on our agenda, as Senator Walker has noted, Senator McGill, would you like to withdraw your motion?
Well, we needed to know what's going on. And so, yes, I'm happy to withdraw it. I would go with Angie's, but I'm a little bit concerned about a college saying that if it has nutrition in it, it's ours, because there are many others like the medical school and so forth. And if it's only 60% alike and you have completely different audiences, there's going to be a class that needs that other 40%. So it seems to me like we're trying to kowtow to the largest college or something right now.
I think that is a good discussion to be had when the course actually comes forward, but it sounds to me like we need to leave it removed from the consent agenda and perhaps have a motion to table this until we both resolve its status and any problems that exist between departments.
Angie has her hand raised.
Yeah, so I guess what I would like to suggest, tell me how to do this. I'd like to have a motion that suggests that we will review the consent agenda that we just approved to make sure that what was listed was actually what was on the consent agenda. Does that make sense? Because we need to verify with the registrar that all that stuff that listed on, that there weren't any accidental errors on our agenda. Because we should not be approving anything that isn't in the Faculty Senate prepare role.
Yes, I agree.
Because I don't think we table that course if it's not even on the agenda.
But it was on the one way or another, it made its way through, and it's not surprising because December is always our biggest month, and hundreds of items come through.
Of course.
So it's easy for one thing to somehow slip in, but we have a lot of safeguards in place that will double check everything in the next several days before it goes to the president. So as it routes from us to the provost's office and then to the president, there will be multiple checks. So if there is any other issue with any other course, it will be called and held.
So our motion to approve the consent agenda is reliant upon those things actually being on the consent agenda. So this course was not approved then, is that, or would not have been approved, and we should not be voting on it right now because it's not even there?
I would say that since it ended up on the consent agenda and we removed it, nothing is going to happen to it now. We took it off.
Right. So my question then, Speaker, is do we need to have a motion or to a validation that the only thing we're approving is things that are actually supposed to be on the consent agenda? Or is that implicit when we approve the consent agenda?
I would say that's totally implicit when we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
I don't see any more hands raised, and I think all the comments went to everyone, so I think it's all been
Okay. So then I think we are fine with having approved the consent agenda with nutrition 440 removed. And I would note that last month, we also tabled several things, and I don't know if anyone is prepared to bring any of those things forward, but now would be an appropriate time if someone wanted to do that. Okay, I don't see anyone leaping up to do that. Then let's move to.
Do we have, were those on the, so it used to be that we would roll those forward, I guess, on the agenda for tabled items. I don't know if that's true anymore, if that's appropriate, but
no, once items are tabled, they sit on the table until somebody makes a motion to bring them off the table.
Okay.
That could be 1 month, 2 months, or never.
there was a course for biomedical engineering that had a concern over it, but we were able to get the support letter from the department. And then we got the documentation put into cars to support the course.
Point of order, Speaker Rice. That's not true. You either table something indefinitely or you table something definitely. I think a couple of those were tabled definitely with, next meeting and that type of thing.
I apologize. I'm looking for the minutes to make sure which class it was supposed to be.
Yeah, it's the BMEN. It's one of the biomedical engineering, and we did meet and we did send them a support letter. So
Okay.
that should be on there, but I didn't see it. That was the one which was tabled and it was resolved.
We can take care of that at the January meeting and still make the catalog and everything will be fine. So we can just make sure that it happens at our next meeting. For committee reports, are there any questions or concerns for the Core Curriculum Council report found in attachment C1 and C2? Hearing no questions or concerns, I declare the report approved as submitted. Next on the agenda are two informational items. The first is a proposed name change in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. Vice Provost Tim Scott will provide the background and information on the change.
Yes, thanks for having me, Dale, and Faculty Senate.
the new name change for Park, Recs, and Tourism has been vetted by the department and has been proposed by the Dean and Vice Chancellor, Jeff Sable, to the Council of Deans. And now it passes as an information item to Faculty Senate. And we are following the SAP for administrative name changes where it has been instigated in the college. So I bring that before you.
Could you please tell everyone what the proposed name change is?
Yes, that would be good, wouldn't it? Hold on just a second, Dale. I know I sent that to you earlier. It will be sorry.
I can
tourism
leave
science to hospitality, hotel management, and tourism.
So just to repeat that,
You bet.
the proposal is to change the name of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism Sciences to Hospitality, Hotel Management, and Tourism.
That is correct. Thank you, Dale.
Andrew?
So this appears to be a different name than, unless I'm considering it backwards than what was brought forward to the Senate as an invitational item last year. Could someone please explain the change?
I guess that someone would probably be me. I think the Applin Center and Investment caused us to refocus on an effort that will be highlighted through the Applin Center. So I think the establishment of that and helped us raise those issues up. And it went back to the original department who have been engaged in this process as well. That's my understanding.
But I will add that, Senator Klein, you are correct. Just for some history here, they came forward with a name change, and the initially a year or so ago, and the Senate raised some issues with that name, and they readjusted. And now, after the significant philanthropic gift to the university that's going to fund this hospitality center, I believe there was a conversation about, should we look at renaming the department in line with some of the new thrust. And so my understanding is that that came forward from the department in the college. It went to the deans and was endorsed by the deans, and then has come to us as the informational item. In essence, in its last step, this is the opportunity for people to provide comment. We do not approve or disapprove name changes, but it is the opportunity to give input. Senator Klein?
So the one thing the Senate has been concerned about is to ensure that there's proper faculty participation in the decision to make the name change. And I believe in the last round with the department, there was a faculty vote, and there was a discussion included in the proposal that went forward. I don't see the proposal, so I'm just wondering if the faculty were indeed consulted and agreed to the change.
My understanding is that they were. Maybe someone from Ag and Life Science can speak to that.
That would be me and or caucus leader Haig. I led the Senate's request, I led a small subcommittee in questioning the faculty of then the RPTS department about that suggested name change. Then under Dr. Stover's leadership as our dean and vice chancellor, and surveyed them, asked them about their input, got responses from both on campus as well as off campus faculty within the department about the suggested name change. There was, as you might suspect, mixed feelings about this name change. Some faculty were very excited about the opportunity because this item of hospitality had been brewing in terms of academic tracks, coursework development, student development, recruiting students. Had been brewing even, definitely, I don't know how long the Applin Center has been brewing, but when we questioned these faculty, Applin Center was on nobody's radar in terms of discussions. And so this is something, yes, they were consulted by the college administration. The college administration acted on the results of their survey of the department faculty. When we went back, it was primarily because there was an apparent mixed feeling, mixed response, mixed results, as it were, and there still seemed to be a lack of, shall I say, great overwhelming support for the name change. But I can at least verify, based on the conversations that I had with faculty one-on-one, as well as the results of our email-based survey, the faculty in that department were consulted. Now, how many of them responded to the surveys, I can't tell you, but they were consulted.
Senator Weinmiller has her hand raised.
So originally it was parks and tourism, and they had a more some more ecological interpretation focus. And so I think the administration wants that department to have more of a hospitality hotel management focus. And some of those faculty were actually moved out of the department into another department, ag leadership. Some of them were moved into RWFM. And so it's been a major reorganization for that department. So I'm not sure that it was a unanimous decision, but some of the folks that had a stakes in that decision were no longer in the department.
Are there any other comments that anyone would like to offer on the proposed name change? Then I would say that takes care of the requirement that it be brought to the Senate for comment.
Thank you.
Our second informational item is proposed amendments to the Faculty Senate Constitution, which can be found in attachment D. These amendments are the work of a subgroup of the Bylaws Committee, which looked at changes that needed to be made in advance of the next round of apportionment, which will be affected significantly by all the organizational changes that took place this year. The proposed amendments were then sent forward to the EC after approval by the Bylaws Committee, and the EC placed them on the agenda. One item includes the issues we believe to be non-controversial, and one has an item that has drawn some opposition in the past. A note about process. This month, the amendments are informational. In January, we will discuss and vote on them. It will take a vote of 2/3 of the Senate. That means 80 of you voting positively to send the proposed amendments forward. So it's important that we have excellent attendance on January 23rd. 2 weeks later, in early February, we will hold a public hearing on the amendments after notifying all faculty of the proposed changes. Following that, we will submit them to the full faculty for a vote that month. That will allow us, assuming they're approved, to move forward with our reapportionment in March and conduct elections in April in keeping with our other constitutional requirements.
Senator McGill has his hand raised.
Yeah, I'm all for the library to be included in the Senate. There's no problem with that. I've wondered about both of them though, where it talks about a 0.75% appointment in FTEs, I guess, because it seems to me anybody that's teaching even 50% of the time has a great interest in what the academic aspects of the university are. Are they counted as 50% FTE when we do apportioning? Are they counted a quarter, whatever they are? I assume the FTE is what counts, not the number of persons. And why is it 0.75?
So I can clarify the 0.75 for you because I was the parliamentarian and chair of the bylaws committee when that went forward and was approved by the Senate and approved by the full faculty. And it was the definition of who gets to vote in the for the Senate and who is eligible to be in the Senate. And one of the problems prior to spelling that out was that there were many departments on campus that were excluding APT faculty from departmental decisions. Some departments didn't even allow APT faculty to attend departmental meetings. And so that definition of 0.75 was to clarify, in essence, that all APT faculty are full faculty with all of the rights that faculty should have within the university. So that's why the 0.75 went in at the time, because that reflected a normal 9-month contract.
Yeah, my question still would be if somebody is a 50% like I was for years, because I had half my salary from Agricultural Experiment Station and half from Texas A&M University, would I not be eligible to be a senator?
You would
right now, but that's
not now. You wouldn't.
And that seems wrong to me because a lot of APTs aren't full-time, 9 months. They don't have us, so I don't know.
Senator Laporte has her hands raised.
Hi, Senator Laporte, College of Arts and Sciences. I was wondering why it had been increased to 150 senators. It seems like an awful lot. Has the faculty, the number of faculty on campus increased such that it would go from 120 to 150?
I don't think that there is any assumption that it would grow by any significance anytime soon. I think that the idea of having some flexibility, which we would end up addressing in bylaws changes, would allow us, for example, in the future, because of a realignment of colleges and departments and that sort of thing, that instead of reducing several college, the numbers of senators, that it might allow to perhaps move to 128 or something like that, that would allow a bit of flexibility rather than looking at that 120 and saying, okay, with the addition of new colleges and all, that means that a number of people have to have membership sliced. This would allow to potentially not have to make that happen if you increase by, let's say, 2 or 3 seats in the Senate.
So just a point of clarification, Dale, that the 150 is shall not exceed. You're not expecting to go up to 150 senators, are you?
Not in my lifetime.
So why does it say 150?
I think that that was a number that would allow, if in the future there are additional colleges, if other things transpire, that it provides flexibility for the future rather than always having to slice back the number of representatives from certain colleges.
I know I already asked a question, but the purpose of the path forward was to consolidate. And I would think that through consolidation, there would be less numbers rather than more. But it just seems a huge amount to manage 150 senators, if it ever gets to that. All right, thank you.
Senator Lupiani has her hand raised.
Thank you, Andrew. I would like to suggest that the requirement number 1 of the membership be changed to reflect the proper approval, since we are changing the Constitution and it takes so long, and it has to be approved by the Senate and then by the entire faculty, that will reflect the proper person that approves the hires. Otherwise, the new faculty that get approved by the VP for faculty affairs are not considered eligible.
That is a good point, and I would suggest, Blanca, that perhaps you could be prepared to move that as an amendment in January when we bring these up for official discussion and voting.
Senator Hill Price has her hand raised.
So does the provost no longer approve the faculty appointments?
I would leave that to faculty affairs to answer, but that's my understanding.
The faculty appointments occur through faculty affairs.
But
that's a very good catch. So
but also
thank you.
we need to address who approves the librarianship or the librarians' appointments to reflect that, because they don't go through faculty affairs since they are not faculty.
So, and they, I think, would be approved by the provost, since they are part of the provost's office. So, Blanca, what if I work with you on a specific amendment for you to offer in January? Perfect.
Senator Taylor has his hand raised.
Yeah, just a quick question on the amendments. Are we in January going to be voting on those particular amendments one by one individually, or will we vote on all amendments in document C collectively as one vote? I assume the former, but I just want to be clear.
So, I think that will be up to the will of the Senate. Normally, we would have put them forward. The one is a block that we would also take to the faculty that way as a single block. But if you so desire, you could move that we separate the individual things, and then we would vote them up and down independently. That is separate from the one that deals with the medical school representation. That's already separate. So it's
Right.
anticipated there'll be at least 2 separate votes.
Okay.
Speaker Rice, there is a comment from Senator Bonds, excuse me, in the chat, which I think is relevant. And let me read that to you, unless you can read it yourself. You're muted. Dale, we can't hear you.
Somehow I was magically muted. Okay. So is there a potential that units would drop from 2 seats to 1? No. Normally, on average, it's roughly 25 faculty per seat, in essence. So the only college that is significantly below that right now would be NMed, which would enter the Senate with our reapportionment. And so they would be the one place that would have 1 seat initially until the faculty there grew. It's not that NMed by itself has a tiny number of faculty, it's that many of their faculty are also dual appointments, either with engineering or with medicine, where their primary employment occurs. So there are very few people right now ad hoc to NMed. And then as that college grows over time and they reach the appropriate numbers, they would gain another seat.
Don't see anything else in the chat, nor does anyone have the hands raised, Dale.
Okay. Then I would invite Speaker-elect Hammond to take us into the committee of the whole. Well,
I don't see her on the list.
Maybe we lost Tracy. So in that case, could I ask Secretary Epstein to take us into the committee of the whole?
Sure. Thank you, Speaker Rice. I want to begin by asking if there are any positive actions or items of concern that are occurring on campus relative to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Secretary Epstein, I do not see any hands raised.
Well, then let's move on to general items. Is there any business for the committee of the whole?
Senator Alvarado has his hand raised first.
Hi. Let's start with the first item. I don't know if any of you have had any issues with student disability services. I know that they are serving a lot of students this semester, more than ever. I don't know if they're fully staffed, if they are shorthanded, but sometimes what I need to do, I need to send them an email to them to remind them to deliver exams to me, especially final exams. So I just want to know what the situation is. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not complaining. I just want to know if they have enough support, enough resources to do what they're supposed to do.
Anyone have something to share on disability services? All right, duly
Just to be more
noted.
specific, if I may, just to be more specific.
Sure.
So for those of you that might not get the whole picture of my comments, lots of students go to disability services to take exams there, right? So because they are allotted to have more time to take exams, and I cannot allow them to take the exams in my classrooms because I need to get out of the classroom because there's another class coming up. Anyway, so the problem sometimes we have is that we don't get the exams right away, not the same day, not even the next day. Sometimes we have to wait a few days to get the exams from the testing center. I just want to know if anybody is keeping an eye on the situation.
Well, my understanding is if you want them right away, you can go pick them up. I'm patient enough to wait for the courier to come by the Blocker building, but there are other faculty who want their test right away, and then you can go over and pick it up wherever they are. I've never bothered. Anyone else have comments?
Yes, I would like to add something we're having actually right now that people are texting back and forth on this issue. We have never had any issues of them taking our exams and bringing it back, but apparently there has been some kind of a technology glitch that they have been going through. And we currently have several students who were confirmed to take the final exam at the disability center. They're sending emails to us saying, you need to proctor them because we don't have seats anymore. So it seems like it's an issue because especially when we are dealing with, thousands of students, and if we have even 20, 30 students that we have to proctor, it gets really complicated. So I'm really not sure what the issue is. And this technology glitch is not the first time that has happened. So
I
I'm
would, Asha, thank you. I would leap in to note that the Senate has in the past expressed deep concerns about the tests and the proctoring of students within the disability services. And I think that initially we thought a lot of this had been resolved. We had a long and involved meeting with folks from disability services maybe a year or so ago, and a number of things were addressed after that. It certainly appears that we need to raise questions and seek to have someone come to the Senate to address those things. I see that Vice Provost Scott raised his hand. Would you like to add something on that, Tim?
Yeah, I would. As we swell to all-time highs, I think they had over 4,700 students registered with them for this semester. They advertised deadlines for finals fairly early. And I think as Janice was mentioning, the courier service may take a while, but going to their building, I think, could resolve that. One thing I want you to note is that President Banks has appointed a working group on this. Don Russell out of engineering is chairing this. And it's got a group of folks from student affairs as well as academic affairs on it, looking at the large number of students that they serve and staffing models and issues like this. So I think any comments that you have, I am happy to take back to Dr. Russell to make sure it's on an agenda, but it is on our radar. And I think one of the things I would say is they have done a tremendous job given the staff they had and the rise in services they provide to incoming students. So.
Thank you. Other comments on disability services before we call on the next person? All right, Senator McCartney, I think you were up next.
Yes, thank you. I have two things. I don't know if I need to do one and then jump back in the line again. The first one is there are several times during the semester where I start teaching my class and about 10, 15 minutes later, either a couple of frat guys or maybe they're Corps cadet people, I don't know, will come in and interrupt class in order to give a present or a flower or sing a carol in the middle of my class. And as cute as that is, it's incredibly rude and disrespectful. I don't mind if they want to do it 5 minutes before class starts, but this is becoming more and more of a routine, especially around the holidays. I know February 14th, watch out if you're a Tuesday, Thursday person, because they're coming for you. Is there something we can do to tell the students before class is fine, after class is fine, but class time is the students and the professor?
Fair point. Is this something maybe to refer to academic affairs?
Well, I would say that this might be something to deal with on a faster basis with the having the executive committee talk with the provost's office about it. This is the first I heard of this happening, so
Well, let me just say the Cupids are very cute.
But I certainly appreciate you alerting us to this, and we can most definitely raise the issue because it does seem inappropriate to have classes disrupted.
Awesome. So I'll go ahead and jump in my second one. It's a little bit more serious. It's going back to helping our students, especially with their mental and psychological help. I'm currently in the process of trying to assist a student, but it seems that there are a lot of cracks in the system where I've tried to reach out on several different platforms, and yet the student is continuing to have issues that don't necessarily seem to be contacted by any of the particular reach out points, I guess is the best way to say it. I've tried to tell somebody, I've tried contacting their advisors. I had to send an email straight up to General Ramirez today, just because there seemed to be no response to help the student. So I think that as much as we're focusing to help them, and there's a lot of great resources, there doesn't seem to be a logical way of contacting people and then ensuring that proper reach out and communication is being done. There's no follow through.
Thank you. Other comments before we get back, Andrew gets back to the queue on follow through on student mental health issues? All right, back to you, Senator Klein.
Senator Haney has his hand up next.
Thank you, Senator Klein. I just wanted to update the Faculty Senate that I'll be meeting with Study Abroad over several issues that have been raised about these per student fee for study abroad trips and things. And I'll be happy to report that back after the results of that meeting. And perhaps we might look at inviting them to actually come to the Senate to explain their fees and those adjustables and, you know, kind of get everybody on the same page as to what's going on with study abroad. So I'll update the faculty on that.
Thank you, Senator Haney, for that follow through.
Senator Lupiani has her hand up next.
I have heard that the decision has been made that the next provost search is going to be internal only. Anybody knows if that's the case, and why not a national search for such a position?
Well, I can answer half the question since I will be co-chairing the search committee with Dr. Anand. So the answer is it is an internal search. If you are asking me to explain the president's decision for that, I'm ill-equipped to do that. That would be something we would need to ask her.
Is that,
Any
is that
other
something,
questions and concerns about the provost search then?
is that something the EC could do?
Oh, certainly. The next meeting that we have with her, which should be in a week, I'll be happy to raise that question.
Senator Hill Price is next. Sorry.
That's what I've been doing, Andrew. I know this came up to the executive committee and it's been out in multiple places, and I didn't know if other people are aware about the different changes in policies and transfers to the university or in process, I guess, and also about the opportunity majors. And there's departments that would like to be on the list of opportunity majors, but can't get on it. And other ones that don't want to be on the list because their actual student to faculty ratios plus lab resources that are restricted. So I know that I think this is supposed to come up on the agenda in January, but admissions or applications open for transfer students January 1. And so I'm curious if there's going to be a hold on that till we get it discussed, or is it already decided, or what?
I'll leap in on that one as well. I knew that there was significant concern. I have expressed it to multiple people in the administration, and I attempted to get people here today to address it to the Senate, to actually talk about the various changes in the admissions program, and specifically with the transfer admissions, which were slated to take effect on January 1. Scheduling conflicts prevented that from happening today. And that is a disappointment, but there is limited control we have, given that there are a number of other things that are in the works today and people are out of town. So to your point, Angie, I will be happy to ask them if they can at least delay the implementation of any of this till discussing it with the Senate. That would seem like needing to shift it only a month or so in order to hear of additional concerns that people might have. I will convey that.
Senator Alvarado has his hand raised next.
Maybe I need to keep something for the January meeting, but seriously, when are we going to go back to Rudder Tower 601? We have been doing this for some time now. I have nothing against Zoom. I think this is a great platform for, pasting comments and doing things like that. But with all seriousness, I think COVID is behind us at this point. And if we want to have a hybrid approach to this, where people have the option of joining through Zoom or being in person, that's great. But I think we need to go back to Rudder 601 and start having face-to-face meetings.
Jorge, we had a long discussion about this in August. The Senate voted for the current school year to remain on Zoom. And one of the primary reasons for that was in a sense, it provides an equal basis for everyone who is at a distance. And now we have a number of colleges where they remain at a distance, and the decision was to maintain this with the idea that we would take another look at it in May, which was part of the resolution.
I understand, but is the idea to keep it in this way, this format, for the foreseeable future?
Well, I think that'll be a decision of the Senate. I know a number of faculty senates have decided to do that.
I mean, it's more convenient for some people, no question about it, but is that more effective? I don't know.
I would say that's a deliberation to have in May.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Senator Babs, did you wish to chime in on this one, or you had another concern?
Well, actually kind of both, but on this one, I just wanted to say that even before the pandemic, it was recognized that when some people are required to be remote and some people are required to be local, that it was best practice to have everyone be remote and on a single session, because I mean, I was a remote postdoc before the pandemic, and it was just awful being in lab meetings where I was the one person trying to talk to everyone over Zoom. So I think this works great, especially since we've got people in other campuses all around the world.
Senator Haig.
Thank you. I just wanted to recognize Dr. John Hagelin from the College of Engineering for his heroic actions on the night of November the 20th. He exemplifies Aggie core values, and I wish him a very speedy recovery from his injuries he suffered that night. Thank you.
Senator Babst.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, with respect to the opportunity majors, is there a public list of which majors are opportunity majors?
I don't believe the list has been made public yet.
Senator Burns.
Sorry, that's not what I thought you said. I do not want to drag this on, but I want to say that the how we're doing these meetings, I don't think that is even really relevant when you comparing that to how many participants we have. We went through from a dwindling number of people with input, that limits the input and discussions and whatnot, to high attendance from the last reported attendance on, or record keeping of that. So unless someone's it's really causing some problems with it, I don't know why we'd ever consider anything else.
Senator Laporte.
Hi, Senator Laporte, College of Arts and Sciences. I don't know how to say this. I've got two things I want to say. I don't know how to say this without it coming across as being angry white woman. But if you watch these Senate meetings, you'll notice that men are called doctors and women are called by their first names. And on the agenda today, we have people that are called doctors that are not doctors, and women who are doctors who are called by their first names. So I'd just like us to be a little bit more thoughtful in how we address people in the Senate and the names and the titles that we use. I know that I, for one, have been wrong in the past and apologized afterwards. The second thing I want to talk about is going back to the mental health issue. Specifically mental health for faculty. I recently had a constituent come to visit me who has been diagnosed with late onset mental health issues, primarily brought on by COVID and isolation and the pandemic. And then I listened to how they had to run the gamut of the system in an attempt to get accommodations in their classroom to accommodate this late onset diagnosis. And a lot of that involved disclosing personal information to administrators that they were not comfortable doing. And I wonder if how long it has been since we have actually visited that process, and whether or not it is a fair and equitable process for faculty, administrators, and students who require accommodations to be successful at this institution.
Thank you.
Senator Angie Hill Price.
So I would like to follow up on what was said about Dr. Haglund. Not only did he help without any thought of safety to himself, but he also immediately, even from the hospital, called back to his department, reached out to his students to assure them that this would not impact them, worked with his TAs to make sure that the students were covered. I mean, he went above and beyond academically as well. So, I mean, just a star faculty member, and I'd like to have that recognized as also. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Any other issues for the committee of the whole? All right, well, I'll turn the meeting back to Speaker Rice.
Okay, thank you. So with no other business before us, do I have a motion to adjourn? I see the motion made and seconded. Then all in favor, I think you can signify with your departure. Have a nice break, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, Dale.